International circuit, where it has been another race weekend that has been underway, and a very special event right in the middle of that race weekend, which we are about to witness. Special in a number of ways, not just from the organization that has put it together, but also the racing itself, and of course what its place in the bigger part of motorsports. It is the Asian Le Mans Sprint Cup 2017. It is one of the most exciting motorsports championships to turn up from the world-renowned organization, the ACO, the Automobile Club de l'Ouest, who you may know. They are actually the real name behind, or the real organizers of the famed Le Mans race, which of course is probably the most well-known race in the world. And they've been obviously running that race and plenty of other series for the last, well, close to a century now. And this Asian Le Mans Sprint Cup 2017 is just the latest edge towards what has been, you know, the impact of Le Mans on motorsport is, well, I haven't got enough time on this program to tell you. But the Asian Le Mans Sprint Cup 2017 is, of course, based in Asia. It consists of, well, three different types of cars, I suppose you could say, and they're very different. And that's why I'm kind of making the difference between them. I'll go through those in a second. But it is also part of a bigger pyramid that unlocks motorsport to a lot of motorsport fans and drivers and racers in Asia. And it's, as I said, been an initiative of the ACO to get this underway, and it's been an absolutely resounding success into its second season now with defending champions. And that is the car you just saw there, is one of the special cars that takes part in this championship, the LMP3. It is the latest prototype from Le Mans, and it is, well, it's an unbelievable car. And it is joined on this grid in this championship by Porsche 997 GT3s, the GT3 Cups, and the Ligiers as well. And all three of them put on quite a show, as I say, every time they do get together. And the first event that happened in May was the initial event, and that was a really quite a spectacle to watch as the LMP3s proved their worth in terms of speed and grip, but also win motorsport. There were different winners over the two races. The structure of the championship is a double race weekend, a race on Saturday and a race on Sunday. Each race is 1 hour long, and within that race there is one allocated pit stop for each of these teams between the 25th and 35th minute. And that is essentially it, because that leaves, as I said, a lot of the driving and the racing in the cars really just highlighted as they go through. And as an example, the LMP3 cars on that first round performed so exceptionally well. They actually, on the first race that was won by David Rizzo and William Locke from Win Motorsport, that they won by 40 clear seconds. It was literally that far ahead. But this is, as I said, the latest prototype for the Le Mans car, and well, it has its own glorious story ahead of it, which has started in a spectacular place. Now, how this all links together is essentially this Sprint Cup. The winners of the Asian Le Mans Sprint Cup can take part in the Asian Le Mans Series, which happens later in the year, and of course that, being a more established, in terms of years, tournament, has access for those drivers, competitors, to the actual 24-hour Le Mans. That's how you can get to the 24-hour Le Mans race, by getting through this wonderful structure that the ACO has set up around the world, thanks to their resources and just thanks to their love for motorsports. And it has been accepted in Asia, and as you're watching it on live stream, and there's been journalists from everywhere that have flocked down to not just see the cars, but also meet some of these big names that are in there. William Locke is not just the team principal, but he's also one of the drivers. Shinyo Sanyo, James Winslow was last year's champion, but there are a lot of names coming up, and there are a lot of talents that are also being identified as well, all under this sophistication and layer of great organization that you've come to expect from any Le Mans Series race. But to have it in Asia is really quite special. My name's Jeevan Selvanathan. As you can tell, I love these cars. And we're going to be watching race 1 of round 2 of this championship this year. And it's all going to be taking part here at the Sepang International Circuit, and you couldn't ask for a better circuit to test out these beautiful performance machines, as pretty much every driver in the world in any class has said that this track, it deserves proper racing cars and proper championships and, well, just proper everything. And so we're about, by the looks of it, 4 or 5 minutes off the start. There are 9 competitors in this race. As I said, there's Porsche 997 GT3s, Lamborghini Gallardos, Ligier JSP3s, and the Ginetta LMP3s as well. There's the BMW Z4 GT3 that was actually a bit of a headline in the last Sprint Cup round, because as it was leading for a while. But in the end, the LMP3s are so well balanced, and they are so fast, and they are literally they have so many more opportunities that they can catch up any time that they may lose. And usually, you'd expect them to be finishing up somewhere near the top. So in essence, it's a championship itself, but it's also by using this, latest state-of-the-art technology, very interesting to see it from a technical point of view as well. And the best point of view, of course, would be from that man's point of view, the actual driving of it. Great weather conditions here at Sepang. Going to be perfect for these cars. Sepang over the years has built up a bit of a reputation in a number of championships, including F1, for being the rain track, for being the rain race. And as you can see, the blazing sun is going to sit, well, just after lunchtime here, Malaysian time. And you're, of course, could be watching it from anywhere in the world on this Sepang International Circuit live stream. As you can see, it looks like the 5-minute board. Yes, it is the 5-minute board, so the grid will be clearing rather rapidly. There's a 5-minute board, there's a 3-minute board, there's a 1-minute board, and depending on your level of rank in terms of working with the cars, from mechanics down to, of course, media and journalists, you will make your way off the grid under the guidance of those 3 boards. So the 5-minute board, essentially, we'll see most of them, there they are, most of the non-race personnel leaving the starting grid. Very important place, obviously, the starting grid. And then for the 1-minute board, it's essentially just going to be the drivers. Safety cars up front. A 1-hour race, as I said. Now, of course, these cars will be lapping a little bit faster than some of the other cars that we've seen. And they should be getting around about 2:10, I would have thought. So a lot of thinking, as always, has gone into not just the LMP3s, which are the latest car out there, but in how this was structured, in having the GT3s in there as well. That was actually just an inclusion earlier this year. So the first season didn't include the GT3s. So that has been quite an exciting development this year. But also the teams and the drivers have really relished this new opportunity. Every new championship that comes up is, has its teething things for them to deal with as teams, but they've just been loving it, and the fans have been loving it, and it's been great to watch it and commentate on it. And now that brings us quite clearly to the point of what will happen in race 2, or race 1, sorry, of round 2. And, well, I'm expecting, I suppose, the LMP3s to really come through again, but it was very, very tight in that first weekend. Ollie Milroy was behind the wheel of the BMW Z4 GT3, and that was the BMW that was actually in the lead of race 2 for in front of one of the NMP3s, which was surprising for quite a distance. And of course, the first race was won by James Winslow in the Odessa 03. So it was good clear-cut racing and lots of speed. And it was interesting to see the different classes actually battling against each other as well. And not just as a back marker or being lapped, as what you probably conventionally expect the faster car to be doing. In this case, the faster car was actually sitting behind the slower car. Right, there's a mass exodus from the grid now, so we're just moments away from the Asian Le Mans Sprint Cup 2017. And you really couldn't ask for better conditions. I remember race 2 of round 1 was had an overcast sky, and that did raise a few eyebrows in Malaysia if there's an overcast sky, but it actually did clear pretty quickly in the end. There's any little indicator on the Malaysian landscape that can lead to sudden changes in weather, which makes it, of course, a great track for testing, but also proves its own challenges in competition as well, in any class, be it F1 or be it Le Mans. Of course, thankfully, these cars are also equipped with various measures to take care of it, but let's just see how it goes. It looks like it's going to be a very, very sunny day, not just on the track, but for the drivers as well. As we move to the 3-minute board now. Now, of course, if you want to find out any more about this wonderful new movement forward with the ACO, then just get onto the website, www.asianlemansprintcup.com. That's the website for this actual event, and that will give you all the rundowns of what happened on round 1, which was, again, as I said, at the Sepang International Circuit. All the rounds will be raced here, sorry. But it will go into detail as to what each of these teams went through. And remember, being the first event of the second season, there was still a lot of uncertainty as to how to strategize the race. In a one pit stop strategy, which is fixed during the hour, then of course everything has to centrally spine around that specific pit stop. So there's a number of things you can do, which usually teams are already used to doing. But for those teams, they took on the challenge very well and came out with the best results as well, with a much bigger field. But it was really the number 27 Infinity Race Engineering team that came through. Dominic Ang is the driver today in that Odessa 03. It's James Winslow and Mustin beforehand. Should be setting up on their warm-up lap now. I can just go through that driver list for you. Shinyo Sanyo in the TKS team, in the Ginetta NMP3. William Locke, the owner, in fact the director and owner of Win Motorsport in his Ligier JS P3. Kurt Hill from Eurasia Motorsport in the other Ligier JS 5.3 Evo. Marco Giacoboni in Arrows Racing and the Lamborghini Gallardo. We've got the Odessa 3s of Team AAI, Junsan Chen, and Infinity Race Engineering, Dominic Lang. BMW Z4 GT3, Shi Huang from Team AAI, and 2 Porsche 997 GT3 Cups. One from Team MZ with Graham Dowsett, and the other one, Wong Kan Kwan from Pass Macau Racing. Now, based on the technical specs of each of these cars, well, there's a few outcomes that you'd expect, but that's exactly what I was mentioning just now, in that quite a different set of outcomes the first time they all got together, and it was very exciting indeed. Sepang has, as a viewer, when you watch it from the outside, it looks like any other normal track, but I've talked to many drivers over the years as to what Sepang is, and it's the inclines, it's the way it's been designed that really pushes car and driver together to the test, and I guess very close racing. So in this case, of course, you've got the balance of say, the Porsche 997, you've got the speed of the Odessas and the NMP3s, and it all comes together very nicely. And there is, of course, the sound of it all. These are high-performance engines in very light chassis cars. They always sound good. So the field nicely following the safety car, all under instruction and regulation. As a rule of thumb, if you are getting into the racing industry, don't ever overtake the safety car, because the safety car is showing you around in a sense. But of course, it is a little bit more of a ceremonial thing now. Though that does seem a bit odd to say about something that has the word safety in it. It is part of a protocol system. It is part of the management and logistics of keeping these cars on track in condition. Of course, keeping the drivers within them in the best condition. And hats off to everyone at Sepang International for doing that this weekend. It's not just about the racing, of course. You've got to bring these cars here, and almost every component outside and in has to be pretty much perfect. So it's not your average move. Now, back on the grid and ready to go. Rolling start for the Asian Le Mans Sprint Cup. And that is it. I think they might be going another warm-up lap. I didn't see the green lights go. I just heard the engines revving in for a second. So excited. And then coming into the back straight. Yes, no, this has to be the rolling start. Yes, they're all settling up nicely. There are the red lights. Duped by the back straight and the front straight. There's the rolling start. And you can hear, and I can even hear through my headphones, wonderful sound. I just went past the start line. So much space for these cars to maneuver and work in. And unbelievably, it's probably one of the oldest designs. I suppose the Porsche would be the oldest design, but it's a Lamborghini Gallardo this up front. Marco Giacoponi in the Arrows Racing with a great start. Pulled off to the right and found a lot of clear air. On top of that, also managed to cut into the first corner well and hold turns 2 and 3. Now, depending on his defensive driving ability, let's see whether he can hold off some of these NMP3s, one of which has just had a problem. Now, I'm told from my monitors that there is a yellow flag at turn 4. So there might be some investigation going here into the race start as that grows. What you saw was the end of a spin. It wasn't a car just restarting, so there was a spin that was a bit too fast for us to catch. If we can catch that and get that, we will update you on how that happened, and of course why it has now been linked to an investigation into the race start. And that's something for the officials and the stewards to get on with. Meanwhile, Mark Giacoponi in the Arrows Racing has done a wonderful job on the first lap. Thinking that's probably going to be it, but I've learnt to not stick my head out too often. Yes, never ever underestimate every single driver's passion for wanting to be up front. And that's essentially it. So that's a beautiful view Really is great to see these cars up here in Sepang, in Malaysia. So holding on to that initial order. Arrows racing up front. Mark Jacoboni, TKS in second. Shino Sanyo, Infinity Racing in third. What a gang. And William Knox, Win Motorsport in fourth. Behind them, you've got Graham Dowsett, Kurt Hill in fifth and sixth. Junsan Chen and Shi Huang, both from Team AI, 7th and 8th, and Wong Kian Kwan is bringing up the rear of the field. There's only about 30 seconds that is separating 1st to 9th. But what's more impressive is the fact that the Ginetta, Ades and Ligier, all three of them have not been able to find a way past the Gallardo for close to 2 laps now. And that is defensive driving for you. But you're going to have to think that those Ginettas and Odessas are going to outstrip the Lambo at some point. Possibly this could be it. Number going to be, that was Dominic Ang having a look. Like I said, Mark Jacoboni hasn't just got one. We've got the Adesso 3s of Team AAI, Junsan Chen and Infinity Race Engineering, found by just sitting there on the right and made a really good move here. And just, well, if it was any more aggressive than that, there probably would have been a complaint. It was the most gentlemanly cutting off of the entire corner you could do. And he did it from a wide angle. It was really well done. And all the other cars settled back into where they should be. Now, that's kind of the proof that it can be done. But whether he can do it for, well, an hour off some 15 turns every lap, well, that's entirely different kettle of fish. Interesting to note that the Ades, Ginetta and Ligier are pretty much lapping at exactly the same speed as of now. 209, all three of them. But I'm sure that's just because they're, in a sense, being held up by the Gallardo. Mark Jacoboni's clocking in 209.153. It's his last lap. Now, when you have a smaller field of competitors, it's a lot easier to identify sector times and how fast they go in specific areas of the track. Now, that was interesting. For a second, there may have been, but I think it was just exhaust fumes. And as I was saying, it's interesting to see how each of these cars, and of course them as a whole, gets through the three sectors of Sepang, Sector 1, Sector 2, and Sector 3, roughly 56 seconds, 39 seconds. Just over now. That looks like a wide enough line that it's going to lead into something. Well, I am going to praise Marco Jacoboni's defensive driving techniques for lasting 3 laps for one of those almost prototype cars went past him. Did very well indeed. Almost in the same area as the achievement of Ollie Mulroy in round one with the BMW Z4. And that is the Ligier JS 553 Evo. That's Kurt Hill from Australia inside. And he has actually just set the fastest lap that we've seen so far, 2:08.151. How close it got. Now, I was about to say how close these championships get, but that was actually a unique situation as well. I mean, that was very close indeed. Xi Huang was the man in the BMW Z4 that was coming in on the outside. With the exception of the NMP3s, and then just, well, bigger speed ratios, I suppose, which led to that 40-second win in round one. It has actually been a very balanced output from the Sprint Cup so far, as we now see Infinity Racing streaking away and putting daylight between them and the other three. And that is the advantage of having one of those LMP3s. If you do get a clear stretch of track ahead of you, and you can really open them up, you can never count out the superior grip and balance and some of these older designs, that we should say. And it really is about technological evolution on the racetrack, and that really is the buzzword at the Automobile Club de l'Ouest, ACO, for the last century. They haven't just built events and championships right at the heart of motorsport, and that's why it's actually quite great to see 100 years later that those same principles being applied to new sets of cars in new territories, and setting up that romance for a whole new generation of people, literally a whole new generation in 100 years. So what the world gets to witness in the end at these Asian Le Mans Sprint Cup 2017 is the different categories of car and classes of car, and really evaluate their strengths, and of course all on this nice level playing field as well. That is a spin, and that's the second one we've seen today. There was that one at the start. Just looking at that news feed from race control, and it would seem that Marco Giacoboni is actually under investigation for a jump start. Now that will be interesting. Now that is, of course, Jun Sang. No, it's William Lock. It's William Lock's Win Motorsport that is, well, going anywhere, and it's definitely not recovering from that spin. So this must have thrown it out at the end of the straight, because those two straights at Sepang. There you go. Ah, it looks like it was actually more of a combination as opposed to any individual error from William. And Mark Giacoboni's Arrows Lamborghini was the other car involved as well. So, more information coming from that, and I will update you on that as it comes in. Meanwhile, it's a tight fight on track. That's Wong Kian Kwan, past Macau Racing in the Porsche. There. That's Chi Huang in the BMW Z4, number 92, just ahead of him. This is a fantastic matchup. There are countless actual car shows that would put those two cars up against each other, and we get to watch it for an hour. Now that car that we saw, the Win Motorsport of William Lock, is in the pit as expected. Probably just to check the chassis in case it wasn't in contact. Unsure as to whether he was clipped by Marco Giacoboni when we know that they both started spinning. Remember, these cars are fast enough to be missed on the amount of cameras that are actually here. So that's why race control exists. You have plenty of sources of information to get right to the heart of the matter. As we look at number 27 Infinity Racing car that is beginning to build a real name for itself at the Asian Le Mans Sprint Cup. This is the car that has been streaking away now on both of the weekends. It, of course, just started this weekend. Race 2 will be tomorrow, Sunday. But this is a familiar sight now. And that is a familiar sound. I can tell you our top 5 now have already passed the line for 6 laps. Infinity Racing's Dominic Ang, watching there, number 27. Behind him, roughly 7 seconds, Shinyo Sano, TKS. Kurt Hill is in 3rd, about 10 seconds behind him in the Eurasia Motorsport Ligier. And then Marc Giacoboni, who was in the lead with Lamborghini, is now settled into 4th place, roughly about 10 seconds behind those the Adeste, Ginetta and Ligier. And there is a slight correction that's just come through. It isn't Marc Giacoboni, who, as I said, I was kind of questioning how he could be under investigation at the start by making such a brilliant start. It is in fact Chi Huang, the BMW Z4 GT3, that possibly made the jump start now. Car number 92 as opposed to car number 98. That was the confusion there. That makes a lot more sense. So Chi Huang is now under the watchful eyes of race control while he drives his race as well. Here's the Ligier JS53 Evo. Essentially, when it's running the race, it's the 4th category, 4th class of car that you see. And of course, being so low to the ground as well, and having that kind of hybrid, more F1 design to it, if you could call it that. It's actually a different roll cage. It makes all the difference. But handles a lot more like a Formula 1. You just see it just pushing its way through effortlessly. And just in the corner of your screen, you saw that battle again between the BMW and the Porsche. Chi Huang and Wang Qianquan. So with that, you can see exactly what I was talking about. The spectacle of lots of different classes of cars. Some fighting within each other, some fighting next to each other. But really, it's great for a motorsports fan to be able to watch these cars in action anyway. Especially out in Asia. Asia has a bustling, busy motorsport scene. These Le Mans cars have really made a bit of a debut over here and have been taken well by motorsport fans here. So that's Dominic Ang over the start line for his 8th lap. Shinyo Sano is now 5 seconds, 4.735 seconds behind him. Nice, safe cushion to build on. Always nice to have a cushion when you are driving. One, you get to really focus a lot more on all the things that are being told to you from your pit, of course, without the extra pressure of someone on your tail. On top of that, you get to really pick your driving lines and not have any wind disturbance and air flows upsetting that line as you're creating the primary slipstream, you could call it. And the pressure, of course, is on number 2, Shinyo Sanyo. To see how much more he can get out of the car, how much more he can take off those racing lines, how much closer he can get. And he really is giving it all right now. Hill still in 3rd in the Ligier, and Mark Giacoboni still in 4th. Had no change in terms of the order, except for the fact that William Lock has now moved to the bottom of the field because of his pit stop, and that was due to the spin. So it is a domino effect in a sense that would lead to a lot of results that drivers and teams would both have to just deal with and get on with it. And get on to the next challenge. I suppose you could say that Infinity Racing over these first 2 rounds of the Asian Le Mans Sprint Cup 2017 have just managed those variables either in a more efficient way or they've been, you could say, a little lucky, but I'll always put it down to protocol and discipline, activating talent, and by the looks of it, and I said this is still the 2nd race, it just looks like they really do have a tight-knit ship, which is great. Now that is Jun San Chen, Team AI, as Mark Giacoboni pulls out of the pits. Fastest lap has actually been set by William Knox Win Motorsports. I'm assuming his car is back to fighting fit capabilities. He clocked in a 2:05.765 on his last lap, which is 4 seconds faster than 2:09. Currently ruling the roost. He also set a sector 1 time of 54.683. He's also the fastest. So William Lock is very happy with his setup now. That looks like a little bit of a sneak peek for the final move, unless he's going to cut inside now. One holds on to that corner. Oh, but as it turned out, it was never going to be an overtaking move as it was intended. There's a car. Actually moving into the pit lane anyway. And that is Chi Huang in the pit. By the looks of it, serving possibly a penalty, maybe. Well, get an update on that as well. In the meantime, here is Hong Kian Kwan, who now has clear track himself. Yeah, he's still on 9 laps. Only 3 of the full grid are on 10 laps. That is the top 3. And that's just a tiny information of exactly how fast these cars go. 2:18, 2:17 laps, and he's just started his 10th lap now. So now we have got to that area which was undeniable for those LMP3 prototypes, which is that advantage that they have in terms of technological evolution is always going to come through in it. It's roughly about 10 seconds in terms of cumulative gains on the track, so they do run their own race, but they were designed to run their own race in a sense, and that's what makes this really exciting, in fact, to have so many different classes with them on track. Just having a look through some of the sector times. All the drivers have now settled in to what they would believe is their base skeleton lap they can work off. That's roughly 55 seconds on sector 1, 37 for sector 2, and about 34 for sector 3. And that's for the prototypes, the SC, Ginetta, and the Ligier. The GT3 grades are about 56, 41, and a couple of seconds on each. They're spectacular to look at. I'm assuming they're even more spectacular to drive. Of course, I haven't got to do that. Only a few people in the world, and we get to do that on the most treasured experiences in motorsports. So that is on Kian Kwan. Again by Dominic Ang. Another one of those classic combinations. That Porsche design has literally been efficient and effective for close to 30 years now, 40 years. And it's been revamped a number of different ways, and it was just a great shot to see the new evolution of racing car come through. Even if it was just for a symbolic effect, but in that case, it was lapping. So Dominic Ang still out in front. Lapping at roughly 2:07.59, which is a second faster than anybody else. Yellow TKS. Now, if you've just joined us on this live stream from Malaysia, this is the Sepang International Circuit. It is Race Saturday, the first of 2 race days that make up the race weekend, and that race weekend is the Asian Le Mans Sprint Cup 2017 Round 2. Very exciting in round 1. And it was that car, the number 27, Infinity Racing engineering car, that did prove very effective on that first round, and it seems to be doing the same here as well. Change of driver. So that would be Chi Huang out the car. And that also, of course, means pit stop window is now open. Just 1 pit stop allowed between the 25th and 35th minute, based on the laps alone. Yep, 27 minutes in, so did kind of begin that at the beginning of this race, the different strategies and permutations that you can have if you have a one-stop fixed window regulation. And of course the easiest one is to just go extremely fast at the beginning, as fast as possible, build up the biggest gap, and then have the quickest possible turnaround for your pit stop and be out. That is standard grade 1, brilliant, works, effective strategy. But you'd be surprised how these teams and classes all work together to really build on that advantage, that basic advantage, based on the real time of each competitor. So essentially, before you do the best you can, you see how the other guy's doing, and you might need to change a plan based on that. But they have the skills and ability to do it with lightning speed. There's nothing stopping that. Infinity Racing engineering Adesso 3 at the moment. Absolutely devouring the corners, really opening up on the straights. So far, not having any real problem. Good gentlemanly conduct from Wong Kang-kwon. Midway nicely for race leader, and I'm assuming he will do the same for Shinyo as well, and he has. Now this could evolve into something quite tasty. Now, of course, one of these cars has to make a pit stop soon. That window will close. It's not going to be now. It'll be the next lap. Because that pit stop is going to be very significant indeed. That kind of now, of course, one of the strategies that does exist is to not use your Malaysian driver as well. The only Malaysian driver in the field is leading in that racing engineering car. So good to have a lot of Malaysian drivers that have come through the ranks. I don't think any of them would have ever thought they would have had the chance to drive an LMP3. Dominic Ang would probably go down as the first, I guess. And he's doing a rather good job of it. Though Shinyo Sanyo does look like he's closing up a little bit. On to lap 14 now. But it's definitely, some of the other cars are definitely using the window. Whether they do or whether they don't will be, of course, a internal, completely confidential plan that has been set up within the team. It would be pretty surprising if they didn't, if they both chose not to. It could be exactly what I said, that now that they are this close at this point in the race, things might need to change, and there might be some really quite frenetic radio communications going on between the cars and the teams as to how they're now going to do this. And as I say that, the Des has come in. Dominic Ang down to pit lane speeds and into his pit. Interesting to note that Mark Jacoboni's Arrows racing car was still there. And it does feel, at least, he's actually been in there for a fair amount of time. But like I said, within this pit window, there's such a flurry of activity in cars that there is usually a period of almost complete turnaround in terms of order, race order, and number, as each of the drivers ferries himself in to get either their car checked or in some cases actually repaired and really well. Good to see Marco Giacomoni respecting pit lane speeds again, coming out as well. The pit lane is a very, very regulated area, as you'd expect it to be. And so all regulations must be strictly adhered to. Racing rules. The rest of it is out on the corners and out on the lines and out on the track. And you can see those lines and corners being taken right now. Our new race leader, Sano. Now that looks like David Rizzo, who's taken over at the Win Motorsport wheel. David Rizzo, of course, a winner from round one. He had a fantastic race one. Race two. Some real speed out of that car. The Arrows Racing Lamborghini reached 4th overall in that first round weekend. And within the GT3 class, of course, it did very well. So each of the classes will have their own set of protocols, you could say. Also results coming out of them. For the neutral, it's a wonderful spectacle for the races. And I've just heard that the pit window has closed, so everybody else who's on track who hasn't been in, and it just looks like there was one last entrant just then. But I'm sure that he'll be allowed in. And that will be no more entrants after that. So whatever you have restocked your car with, or your team has restocked your car with, is now what you will use till the end of the race. It's a very sobering thought if you think about it. And we have seen on many occasions that combination or whatever new technology they put on there sadly not work out, and that'll be the end of the race. And something like that. And actually that looks more like it was a spin out as opposed to any kind of engine problem. And it looked like it was the Team AAI BMW or one of the Porsches. Now, of course, we have new drivers on there. I should probably introduce them all. The BMW Z4 GT3 from Team AAI is now being driven by Ollie Milroy, and that was the combination that literally stayed in front for half of one of the races in round one. It was impressive, very impressive from Ollie. Nick Foster has taken over in one of the 997 GT3 Cups for Team NZ. The Adesso 3 is still, well, Jun Sanchen. David Rizzo in the Win Motorsports. Douglas Koo has taken over in the Infinity Racing Engineering car, and that looks like all the changes. No, Michael Choi is back in the Lamborghini Gallardo, and that's what we saw on round one as well. So that's for Arrows. We are now 16 laps in for the top two of Shinyo Sanyo and Douglas Koo. TKS and Infinity Racing is what you're watching on the screen right now. And then the next three competitors are on 15 laps. We'll make that 4. And that is Michael Choi, David Rizzo, Nick Foster, and Ollie Milroy. The Lamborghini Ligier Porsche 997 and the BMW Z4. That's a good tight pack. And that's a very good battle if you think about it. And just the last two, who are actually in the pits right now, are still on 14 laps, and that's Jun San Chen and Wang Qianquan in Team AI and the Pass Macau Racing. Now, it looks like Douglas Koo is in second, don't forget. Well, that's great to see that the medical teams and the safety teams and all those. And we have 27 Infinity Racing with a little bit of a back marker in the form of Nick Foster's Team NZ Porsche. Safety car is out on the track as expected. I just got that information in. As you can see, it's been already told to everybody else out there as well. So to a sustained area, which is when the safety car is on the track, and there he is, or there it is, I should say. But it really is one of the most important things that's told to any racing driver, is about the safety car, because he's obviously master of ceremonies, I suppose you could say, of all of it. You just see that usual regular tactic that we see on all sorts of drivers, warming up your wheels, keeping your wheels and your tires especially in the right condition. That serpentine. And I suppose while you're waiting for things to get back to racing conditions, probably we're about to see exactly what happened. And have a look at that. Complete spin out. But thankfully caught by the gravel, and looks like didn't hit any of the tire wall, so yes, we're all very happy that the driver got out safe and of course was immediately picked up by the emergency teams around. You can't take any of these off-track incidents lightly or unguarded in any way, because well, this is an interesting situation that I've just been informed about. That is the Infinity Racing car for Douglas Koo, who is still traveling at speed because he's actually so far ahead of the pack that he has to catch up with the safety car that's on the other side of the track. That's the kind of situation you get when you have these wildly varying technologies and the outputs from them all racing together. It's a unique outcome, it has to be said, but it is still happening, and so kind of half the track is racing in a sense, and the other half is, yeah, and that's why then to be, as you see, you can immediately see, usually you can't tell when you're watching cars move fast on screens exactly how fast they're going, because it's all relative to the next car, but I think you can clearly see here the difference as the safety car is really doing its best to try to pull this together into the platform needed so that they can continue the race. And that's why safety cars are there. Whatever happens on track, it becomes the moderator, it becomes the car that sets the pace. But in this case, it had to do a lot of manipulation, should we say, or rather wait a long time. Now, meanwhile, this is the other half, of things. In fact, that is actually the JS, I thought that was the same car. That's the Ligier JS 53 Evo of Kurt Hill that has hit a tire wall, hit one of the barriers. I'm sure that was Kurt that we were seeing. But couldn't actually see the Ligier hit that. You actually see it hit the wall, and this is one of the challenges, I suppose, you face when you've got cars moving at different speeds at different parts of the track. And there's so much space between them, but yet at the same time, they're all on the same page. So it's a bit more complicated an equation than, say, having a field of Formula One cars or a field of A1 cars or similar cars. And it is also fascinating the way that they do handle these situations. Drivers automatically, it's very difficult for drivers, of course. False starts, second restarts, anything that isn't the usual norm. It is the challenge of the driver himself to actually be able to change down a gear in his head and just wait out till the race resumes. Because if you do anything wrong, of course, in this period, then you will face repercussions for it. It always amazes me how they do manage to do that, go from full-on competition to kind of a standby mode, in a sense. Now that is Gilles Sanchez still in the pit. So we essentially have almost a 4-lap difference now from a 9-man grid. That is the dynamics of it is probably unique in motorsports, but great to have. It's another great stat that that is you can attach strictly to these wonderful cars. Those Porsche 997s also competing in the GT Cup. Different classes. Well, it looks like everyone has been accounted for. You see the flashing red lights from over the start grid. Looks like everyone is back on the same page. Wonderful job, absolutely marvelous. Really is amazing how the communication going between the cars, going between the safety car, going between everyone, and the rules as well in there to pull everyone back together again. That's something that I'm proud to say I've actually managed to witness now. One final check. Have your reformed grid. -1 car, of course, and that is the Ligier JS53 Evo. I can't see that car coming back out of the tire wall, and it's got to be Kurt Hill. Yep, looks like it. And then the safety car will align the race to the speed that it was before. And all of this done, of course, immediately after any incident that can happen at any corner. So the versatility of the whole system in place is really quite a joy to watch. And look at that, reformed grid, 3 different types of car. Wildly different in their capabilities, wildly different in their design. But together, in this, wow, it is one-of-a-kind championship, but one-of-a-kind championship brought to you by people that know motorsport, simple as that. And if you were ever going to have something new in motorsport, you'd want it to be from people that have been doing it for 100 years. And of course, while the brand, Le Mans itself as a race, and the 24-hour race, by being so different from other races, made a lot of headlines in the 80s, especially the 90s. It is the little things after that that has made The real difference is the technological engineering for one, and all the other initiatives and programs that the ACO have put together from France globally and really spread it out with the intention of bringing motorsports to more fans around the world. And this is exactly what they were talking about, seeing cars that you wouldn't really expect to find in Asia on an Asian track, and not just for testing as well. There's a competition in there, and there are rewards, and of course trophies and all the usual, I suppose you could say, rewards of driving, but to the drivers the rewards are kind of different, I suppose. But on top of that, there is a set pyramid for young drivers, older drivers. Whatever your level of driving could be, there is a goal and an aim that the ACO have put out for you within these series and cups that you can set your targets on. Maybe you can make it through. Before this and before the Asian Le Mans series, there was no way that you could make it to the 24-hour Le Mans. So it's a great stairway they put together. And as you can see, they are now back up to full speed, and the safety car has had its time. It was obeyed. And there goes the engines again. You can hear them. It was just a bit noticeably quiet for about 2 laps as they all followed instructions, but now, well, the gloves are off. Now, of course, the great thing about these prototypes are they can, they do incredible things with cornering, physics and dynamics, absolutely incredible things. But you do have these classic designs, BMWs and the Porsches that have served so well for so long and have been almost maxed out to what that design could do. Of course, Porsche have stuck to that 911 base concept for a lot of their models, but it has also been accepted in racing circles, and to be honest, even in road circles, as being a very solid and balanced car indeed. Only time will tell what history will be written by these LMP3s. They are relatively new. Design plus on track has only been a handful of years. We'll actually check on that for you. But they are expected, as with anything from the ACO and anything under the supervision of the ACO, to redefine racing and to redefine their area of racing. That is one of those prototypes, and it's the one that has actually set the fastest sector time and lap time on day 1 of the weekend. Don't forget, 2 races every race round, and that means that the results of race 1 will impact race 2 as well in terms of your preparation for it, your strategy for it, how you try and execute it. What you look for, what you hope for. Ideally, obviously, the double win, but it's not as easy as you think. Even for the best of cars and the best of drivers, there's a lot of variables and factors, just like that, in a sense, which need to be controlled as opposed to planned, and at speed. So it really is different experience. Absolutely fluid way that Win Motorsport car just took a very serious corner. The back straight. Turn 14 they're coming up to now, turn 15 into home straight. wide. No. Seems to be the favored line at that speed. As you can imagine, the car designed towards that area, the amount of downforce, and that was a beautiful shot. The chassis itself, the outside of the car is essentially well, I just had to stop what I was saying because we have had some very important news as car 1, which is that car, the Win Motorsport driven by David Rizzo, is under investigation as well for actually causing the collision at turn 15. Now that is far more serious than possibly a theorized intervention. That looks like it's pretty much been cut and dried, and wow, causing a collision is never really the right combination of words you want to hear at any racing event. And we're going to have to see where that goes. So there will be some headlines coming from this round for sure. Once again, Asian Le Mans Sprint Cup is what it's called, and the website is www.asianlemanssprintcup.com. That's where you get this deeper look into some of these incidents that have been happening. There's a drive-through penalty as well for car 1. No, car 91, sorry. And it's car 1 for the collision. That's drive-through penalties for exiting the pit lane on a red light. I did say it was strict. That's just another one. Another new, actually, for me, the law regulation button. You've got to watch yourself in there, even if there's nobody else in there with you. And so that's 2 investigations which Race Control have already got down on their checklist, and they'll be going through, and they really will go through every detail to find out and see what went on there. But as I said, the combination of words causing a collision at a race event. And this is the leader of the GT class, Michael Choi, in the Arrows Racing. Similar to his performance, in fact, in the GT class in round 1 as well. So that's good consistency from Arrows. That Gallardo performed well in round 1. Now, being a series or a cup that is being raced out on the same track as well for all of its rounds, means that these drivers and these cars can be set up, the cars can be tuned up, and the drivers, of course, can micro-read. They can micro-read these tracks. A lot of other races would come in for just a couple of days, 2 or 3 days, but these guys have the opportunity to race Sepang at a finer detail. So that is the leader of the GT class, and very happy with that. Currently sharing the track, that area of the track, with that number 1 car. Got past the Infinity Racing Engineering, number 27, Douglas Koo's car. Now, David Rizzo, according to, is in the pit. There you go. He's just got the information. Once again, he's under investigation for causing a collision. So, it looks like it's a drive-through penalty. Yes, it is a drive-through penalty. just learned that Jeffrey Lee in number 91, Team AA1, is also got a drive-through penalty, and that's for exiting pit lane on a red light. So 2 drive-through penalties, but I still think there'll be probably a little bit more rhetoric and news that will come. And look at that car. That is the end result of that Ligier JS53 Evo, and it's not a question of being happy about it or not. It's a question of you know, how it happened, I suppose. Those cars are set up to micro details as well, so not the best outcome, and not one that people would ever look forward to. But we can at least be thankful the driver was safe, and it's just a car. And once again, everything's been taken care of. But so 2 definite headlines, and of course they'll be joined by a third, which will be the winner of this race, and second and third. It's always going to be an important round, being the second round of the championship. The first round is very new for a lot of the drivers. As I said, GT3 had just been almost included, and that was definitely wide off that line onto the home straight, but recovered nicely by Ollie Milroy. But as I was saying, for all the drivers, when you start a new championship, there is a little bit of caution, I suppose you could say, but more planning into getting it right and making sure you get your best results off the start. But then as you go through the season, you can start working away and chipping away at the block and making the sculpture, I suppose. And that's the opportunity that these guys have now for the first time in round 2 here up at the Sepang International Circuit in Malaysia. Well, we are on 25 laps now, so we should be on the last lap now. This is the leader, Shinyo Sano, in the TKS. Benefited, you could say, I suppose, from that drive-through penalty, but rules are the rules, and it's fair for all. So Shinyo, who should be able to stay on, if this is in fact the last lap, and I think it is, he should be able to claim his victory from race 1, and that sets up most of the platform for permutations, I suppose, for race 2. The fact that Shinyo has already won race 1. And he's going to put a lot more pressure on the Win Motorsport team and, of course, Infinity Racing, the other 2 prototypes. So we're looking forward to exciting stuff tomorrow. As I understand it, there are plenty of races happening up, of course, on a race weekend. This being the Premier 1, and the Asian Le Mans Sprint Cup Sunday race will start at lunchtime, 12:55. So that Sepang is going to be very, very hot for them. A couple of hours before their start today. You really can tell the difference in weather up here in Sepang. As you can see, the heat haze just over the cars there anyway. If it rains, you wouldn't be able to see the cars. And those 2 situations can sometimes be 10 minutes apart. So it is definitely something you have to keep an eye on when you're racing at Sepang. No matter how clear it looks, just make sure you've got your eye on the weather. So this should be the closing victory lap for the rest of the pack as well. So Shinyo Sanyo confirmed winner, 26 laps. And David Rizzo second, some 5 seconds, 5.5 seconds after him. Michael Choi has finished in GT class in the Arrows Racing as winner, but also is third in overall. And that's with about 35 seconds behind David Rizzo. That's expected, of course. And then fourth, Infinity Racing's Douglas Koo, probably as a result of that drive-through penalty, the Adesso 3. Oh no, sorry, I stand corrected. That was not actually Douglas Koo, so that was a clear fourth. that has just shown that a GT car can, in fact, break that top three of the NMP3s in the second round. The next car up is 5th placed Ollie Milroy, also 2nd in the GT class. Nick Foster in 6th, Team NZ in the GT3 Cup, Porsche 997. And they are on 25 laps, and 1 lap down. And everybody else is 3 laps back, essentially. So you've got Mauricio De Jesus, Jeffrey Lee, and Kurt Hill rounding off the pack at various distances around the track, of course, but that is the official order. And once again, real praise out to all the people in logistics and all the people, all the race control and the broadcasters, everybody, for keeping an eye on all of this stuff happening in such a unique pattern, just all the time, and knowing where everything is. It's not just the computer systems that do it, it's a really integrated link of people and everyone being aware. Now, all the cars coming in, and Shinyo Sanyo is very happy that it's his yellow TKS is going to be crossing that red line and parking up in the winner's berth. All the cars now subject to technical overviews, reviews, and spec checks. And we did say he was going to be happy, and there you go. That's exactly how happy he is. Good to see. So we're still waiting for the rest of the grid to come in. There is the GT class car that made it onto the overall podium as well, which is really good to see. And that's the Ades. That probably, the car probably thinks, well, you know what, I should have been in that berth. Well, that's the way it rolls on race day. Definitely a great spectacle again, and a couple of good battles in there. But really, I suppose the talking point from this race is going to be those drive-through penalties. One, how they happened. Two, were they the right, should you say, of an equal amount to the cause of it? Because if it was a collision, then you could say that, well, possibly more than a drive-through penalty was called for. If it was exiting the pit lane on a red light, then yes, that is a cause for a drive-through penalty. But as I said, that is why race control exists, and they have some very, very informed and very, very authorized people to make those decisions and to look through every single detail. Of course, this entire situation was recently brought to public knowledge with Lewis Hamilton and his pit lane activities, and he, of course, is a very well-known star, and so a lot of people got to understand exactly how strict these pit lanes can be. Everyone seems to be. The rest of the cars are coming in. That is one of the Porsches. Looks like it was Mauricio. And that was Michael Choi. And I said, good second consecutive result from him in the Asian Le Mans Sprint Cup. He did very well on race weekend for round one. Like William Locke actually has other duties as well, but I don't believe to the extent that William does with Win Motorsport. Win Motorsport is essentially William Locke's baby, and he gets to drive that car with David Rizzo as well. So he really is a hands-on team kind of principle. That's exactly how I would define a team principle. And in this case, he's actually done really well by setting an example for everyone else to follow as well within his team by actually putting a GT car on the overall podium. And that is an achievement in itself. In the end, we're looking at the classes. It was, well, the Porsches didn't fare that well, I suppose. on the day. I suppose Jeffrey Lee's Deso 3 finishing 8th is probably the biggest, well, surprise, I suppose you could say. I wouldn't have expected that. But with just 21 laps completed as well, and his last lap was 2:11, which is about 5 seconds off the pace. So possibly there was something going wrong with that, Ledes. But I said that's for Jeffrey, Team AAI, and race control to find out and to basically reveal if should they want to. These are all very highly confidential things. I said it before during the race as well. Highly confidential plans and protocols that these teams put together. But the results that they achieve are quite incredible. And to have it all in a championship which shows off these different categories and classes in Malaysia, in Asia, just speaks a tiny bit to the achievements of 1, the ACO, 2, the Asia Le Mans Sprint Series, which was in many ways a precursor to the idea of the Sprint Cup. Just the whole growth of it, and in the end, how it serves. And here we go with what happened today. And I'm sure there's a couple of shots that are going to be in there that we're all expecting, but it was a beautiful grid and it took off very nicely. It was a very, very good start from the Gallardo, and this was, I suppose, the early inkling that it was really going to do something today. But a great cutoff there to cut off all 3 LMP3s and the Evo as well. And it stayed that way. Now that was actually the end of a spin that, as we found out during the race, was possibly caused by another car. So there was already issues that were being talked about at race control, but then a few decisions had to be handed out, and that was to Win Motorsports' David Rizzo for car number 1 for causing that collision. And it's great that we actually got to see the collisions as well, and that was deemed worthy of a drive-through penalty, which some may say was probably a bit light. Seeing as how there was another car that got another drive-through penalty, exactly the same, just for missing a red light. So, but really, this entire series is a lot more about this engineering that we're watching and the compatibility of this engineering, the difference of this engineering, and the effect of this engineering. So maybe they are just a tiny bit easy on some of these incidents. There's definitely no harm done to anyone. They were obviously not intentional. So perhaps it was a question of just really getting to grips with these cars on the track at the weekend. In the end, of course, as with any sport, you can't really have any kind of issue with any kind of refereeing decisions or anything in the middle. This was the final moment for Shinyo Sanyo and David Rizzo as they crossed the finish line, and a great result for Shinyo in race 1. Remember, you got to add that in race 1 because this is just half of the weekend, and Shinyo is not going to go back to his hotel and go, yes, I've won round 2 at all. He's going to say, I'm now ready for race 2 on round 2, and that's essentially what everyone else will be saying as well, but for him it'll be a lot easier as he was top of the heap in race 1. Now, of course, as I said, race 2 will be on Sunday. It will be tomorrow, and it will be a little bit earlier, just before lunchtime, just before 1 p.m. So tune in wherever you are in the world. Please make your adjustments for the time as well, and join us again for that. We'll be back with the prize presentation, of course, in just a bit, so stick with us.